Good evening, this is Atmospheric Alex here with yet another severe weather update and discussion here, as we're going to be talking about a very active week of severe weather coming right up for a large portion of the central and even into the eastern U.S. We're going to start off with the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook here for today. We are talking about a level 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale up here for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska, and we could potentially be seeing a tornado risk develop across portions of Nebraska as well. And then we have a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk for severe weather across portions of the eastern U.S. And there's a bit of uncertainty, especially going over in this area here, as to whether or not storms are going to form. But again, if they do, there's a lot of storm energy available for them, and it could get a little bit interesting. Our tornado risk today up in Nebraska here, we have a little bit of a 5% risk near Grand Island, North Platte here, Kearney, Nebraska, Ainsworth, kind of in that general vicinity. Our wind risk pretty much goes as follows, nice little 15% there. And this is, again, within 25 miles of a given point. That's how they calculate these risks. And even a bit of large hail concerns for that area as well. Now going into tomorrow, we have a level 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, so an enhanced risk here for portions here of Wisconsin, even Minnesota creeping in on that, Illinois, Indiana, and even portions of Michigan as well. This is going to certainly be one of the more notable days we've seen in a while here, as we do have a 10% chance for a strong tornado within 25 miles of a given point for portions of Wisconsin there. And then especially even in this brown area, a 5% risk. So we could see tornadoes outside of there. Maybe this could extend a little bit further south if confidence can increase, but we really don't know that yet. As we move on through into our wind risk here, you could see a 30% there. Could we see a hatched risk? We'll have to see. And for our hail risk there, yeah, definitely could be talking about some pretty large hail, upwards possibly over of 2 inches in diameter. So that is going to be something to really watch out for. Moving right into our day 3 risk, this is going to be Friday. We have a level 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale yet again for portions of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri here. And I'd even like to note this slight risk here, and this could be expanded, quite a bit further eastward in some areas. We're really going to have to watch out for this. I think there could be some areas that see severe weather that is further east with all the storm energy being present. But that is what we're talking about there. Damaging winds, large hail, couldn't even run a strong tornado in that orange area. We really have to be monitoring that closely. And it doesn't stop. Going into day 5, this is going into Sunday, I do believe, and we're talking about a slight risk for severe weather across portions of Oklahoma here. This is when our plains threats could really begin to get underway here. And we're going to be seeing a much more active pattern. Strong to possibly intense tornado risk could begin to develop going into early next week for the Great Plains. Oh, and really quickly, before we do a deep dive into our models here, just if you want to follow along with me here, the time is going to be right here in Zulu. 23Z basically means 7 p.m. Eastern time and 6 p.m. Central time. You begin to see us as 7, 8, 9, and 10 p.m. So if you're ever confused about the timing, just know this is in Zulu, and you do have to do a brief little conversion there. Let's take a look at our future radar for tonight, or at least what the model says could happen. Well, we're talking about storms popping up about now across South Dakota and Nebraska, and really looking quite messy here. Just a bit of a linear segment. Could see a couple of semi-discrete supercells try and fire ahead of that, though, and that could promote maybe a very short-term, short-lived, strong tornado risk, but definitely don't be counting on that, and it is not set in stone. As we continue through the night, it just looks like a bunch of damaging winds and hail. Wouldn't be shocked if we see an enhanced risk upgrade, especially for linear segments like this. Could see upwards of 80-mile-an-hour winds with this going right off to the north and east, cutting right through Sioux Falls around 2 to 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. How about your ingredients? We're going to take a look at your supercell composite. It's a bit of an easier thing to understand here. Basically what you need to know are supercells firing in this environment over here. You can see some orange and red colors, so definitely favorable ingredients. And even further south, you can see a couple more areas. As we go later on into the night, it really does begin to increase further. Again, if we see any supercells ahead of this developing line, strong tornado risk certainly cannot be ruled out. And just, Over here we're talking about a lot of dry and warm air aloft, so no storms are expected to form in those areas, thankfully, or we'd be having a ton of issues. Now let's take a look at our HRRR model for tomorrow, and what we're really starting to see here is a bit of a messy mode at first, seeing some showers and storms popping off across North Dakota, even South Dakota, and most certainly Minnesota here, going in around 2 to 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. As we continue, running the clock forwards, you can definitely see what I'm talking about here. Some of the semi-discrete supercells and clusters starting to form up here in southeastern Minnesota and then going into Wisconsin as well. And as we continue to move forward here into 4 p.m. tomorrow evening / afternoon, it really does become more of a wind risk up here, but further south you do start to see potentially more of a tornado risk here as we see some clustery, almost semi-discrete supercells trying to fire there. If we can get them a little more discrete, we could see a strong tornado risk, so that's something to watch. Like this for sure, a strong, potentially even intense tornado out of that, but we may be lacking a bit of wind shear that far north. We'll have to wait and see. And just kind of a mess kind of pops off here. You do get a nice little discrete supercell down here near South Bend and Fort Wayne. That is going to be a huge issue if that forms. And even down here along our dry line here going into Illinois might be a bit of a concern as well. But not nearly as crazy as the models were showing it yesterday. So this is some fantastic news. And just in case you're curious, it'll probably impact the Chicago area around 6 to 8 p.m. tomorrow evening. Give or take an hour. Where are your ingredients? Let's look at your supercell composite parameters. Very elevated further south. And then up north, too, we have this little pocket up here of decent wind shear in the black flags there. You can see it's over 50 knots of shear. And then in your red and pink colors there with your supercells, that could definitely be a localized, much more favorable environment than most of the risk at that time. As we continue moving through, you could see going on into portions of Wisconsin, that really begins to ramp up with those supercells. And then as we continue to go further south, take a look at that. Seeing some more activity down here. It looks a little more isolated though with your parameters, but still could get away with a strong tornado risk at the very least. Going into northern Indiana, we're talking about a much more favorable environment here, and I definitely could not rule out an intense tornado if we do see a discrete supercell fire off. There's a lot of if factors here, but that is definitely a nice environment. Further south, my goodness, thank goodness there's warm air aloft to stop that, because we would be talking about a ton of major issues with some really intense winds, hail, and tornadic activity. Now, unfortunately, our handy-dandy HRRR model does not go out far enough right now, so we're going to look at our roughs model. Now, it's not the most accurate model, but it is probably the best we have as of now. Let's take a look at Friday here, because I am definitely a bit concerned about this. Talking about some supercells possibly firing up near Columbia and St. Louis in Missouri, starting around 2 to 4 p.m. into Friday afternoon. These storms may be a bit too overdone, but look at this really explosive development here across the board. We're talking about some very large hail out of these storms, if all else fails. And even like here across Evansville, you could even be seeing your storm activity moving in between 4 to 8 p.m. At least that first round for sure. Look at those storms, really intense there. And as we go throughout Friday night, it starts to congeal into a humongous line here. You can see taking place another little segment here. This is going to quickly move off to the southeast, provide a pretty substantial damaging wind risk here. Maybe throughout this area here, though there is some uncertainty, so that is not going to be your final forecast by any stretch of the imagination. As we go through Friday night, you could definitely see this here, this nice Boeing segment of possibly 60 to 70 plus mile an hour winds blasting through Kentucky. Continuing further through, this even makes its way down into East Tennessee as well into Saturday morning. And again, we could be talking about 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, possibly higher with our parameter space being realized. Now continue to move further south as all of our frames are missing. I don't know why. And you can see it continuing on through. Nothing much more to say about that. So, your parameters are going to be very favorable. Let's look at our storm energy first and foremost from our NAM model, or NAM 3 kilometer for short. up to 4,000 storm energy across a large area. You can even see a couple blips upwards of 5,000. So for certain, this is going to sustain significant severe weather. And moving throughout the night, I mean, take a look at this. There's a large amount of storm energy still being present here, even late Friday night, early Saturday morning for that severe weather to continue. Now, for your supercell composite parameters, you can see this here moves right on out. I mean, thankfully, this would be definitely an extremely favorable environment for severe weather across East Tennessee into my own backyard. Don't get me wrong here. And going on through into Friday afternoon, Friday evening, this whole entire area needs to be watched very closely. I mean, this is a extremely favorable environment, a volatile, high-end environment if any severe storms are realized here. And you can see they do pop off here further west, move on through, and you can see your parameters really spiking upwards in some isolated pockets. And this will continue throughout the night, and my goodness, your wind shear begins to ramp up out of your southwest, and this is a large pool of extremely favorable conditions for significant severe weather. Maybe destructive winds, large hail, and even a couple of tornadoes in that line. And look at that going into East Tennessee. Not many issues there. It'll probably sustain itself for a very long time, so you need to have your emergency alerts turned on your phone and crank that weather radio on high so you don't miss out on any alerts throughout the night, as it could get quite serious. How about going further west? This is such a large area. We have to do 2 sectors, believe it or not. You could see what appears to be a bit of supercell initiation across portions of Texas. That is very intriguing. We'll see if that continues on the next model runs, but we're up to 5,500 Cape here. And not much wind shear, but definitely a tornado risk, and that would be pretty significant hail. No doubt about that. And what about your storm ingredients here? Look at that initial batch of extreme conditions here, moving across Oklahoma, Arkansas, into Missouri. That's where your storms are really going to fire off. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's going to be a very favorable environment. Moving further off to the west into, Texas and Oklahoma, definitely the risk for supercells with pretty large hail down there, I'd say, is a possibility. Now, with all that aside, let's look at our low-res NAM model for Saturday. You can see here on this particular model, look at this across Oklahoma. Fully discrete supercells are being realized. Even Texas here. We are talking about potentially a significant event here. Maybe a pretty significant tornado episode, if you will. Take a look at that nice supercell there, and even one here kind of splits off into 2 a little bit. That one going that way, that one going that way. But still, this is looking like a pretty interesting day for sure. If we do see supercells fire in this environment, stuff could really hit the fan fast here. As we go throughout the night, that sustains itself, and I will tell you what, our parameters are there for it. Look at this. Extremely favorable ingredients here for severe weather in some of these areas. So for sure, we'll promote a potentially strong to intense tornado threat. Again, if supercells can form, if they can materialize. But there's a lot of forcing with this day, so it wouldn't shock me. This supercell here is home free right here. Look at that. Up into your pinks and your purples. It is going to be quite the night out there for some of you all, I have a feeling. Now, of course, there's going to be more severe weather after this going on through. Let's actually take a look at a couple things first. Here is tomorrow's risk on your GEFS model. Big ol' area of red supercell composite, so lots of storm energy coming together with a bit of wind shear. Well, what do you get? You get a ton of elevated parameters. This is not the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook. It's the same color table, I know. This is not a moderate risk for severe weather. This is just the favorable ingredients associated with this. We're talking about, 10 units of supercell composite across those areas. Moving on through into Friday, you can see why I'm so concerned. Look at that there. Definitely going to be something to watch. And that big orange area, too. Moving into Friday night. And their planes get active just the day after. Moving through into Saturday. orange supercell composites here, so definitely a bit of a signal for severe weather. Going on into Sunday, a much more heightened signal. Going into Monday, an even more heightened signal. This would definitely be one of your more significant dryline events that we have seen across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas in quite some time, I'll have to say. Definitely over a year. So we really have to watch this particular area in here. The plains are going to wake up fast, and they are going to be out for blood. It's going to get wild out there. And then there even could be a signal going into Tuesday as well, but it's a lot lower of a chance. Wouldn't be shocked to see a couple orange areas maybe pop up through here, but we're a little too far to find that out just yet. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community, and also feel free to share with friends and family on social media so they know about how significant the severe risk is going to be across these two defined areas. And even feel free to leave a comment in the section below if you wish, if you really enjoyed this video, or if you notice that I'm kind of using a color code on my shirts here to dictate how significant severe weather could be. I have the red shirt on today, which means you really do need to pay attention closely. With that being said, you all have a wonderful night and stay extremely weather aware.